Rivalry, history, passion, pride. This series explores football's bitterest clashes. This is Football Rivalries. Coming up, Tottenham Hotspur against Arsenal, a North London rivalry with plenty of history. And temperatures are rising in Turkey. Galatasaray against Fenerbahce is never a quiet affair, to put it mildly.
There's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of joy.
It does put an extra spark into the game.
It's a fierce rivalry, it always has been, it always will be. Whenever the two teams meet, however they are positioned in the league.
If we are behind in front, or 10 points behind, or 10 points ahead, when you play Tottenham, it's always a special game.
There's always going to be a fierce competition between the two clubs.
You're so keyed up for that game. All you want to do is win the game.
It's a big one. It goes back a long way, and you know, on the day of the game, there's a different feel about it.
A short bus ride along the famous Seven Sisters Road separates Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspur. The fans themselves live in the same neighbourhoods. They can even be part of the same family. And it's this proximity that makes the North London rivalry one of the fiercest in English football.
The build-up is tremendous. The anticipation and the fear of losing. People want to win that game. They want to be able to be proud over the guy that works next to him because of the fact that he gets the laugh. And that is where what they really don't like is someone taking the mickey and really putting you through it.
There are 13 league clubs based in London, but there are just 2 that maintain a passionate head-to-head rivalry. Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspur. And feelings do tend to run deep.
That's the best picture in London. Look at that.
But Arsenal versus Tottenham Hotspur hasn't always been the North London derby. Arsenal have their roots in Woolwich, in the southeast of the capital.
We don't really forget that our origins sort of are in Woolwich and Plumstead, but whilst we're respectful and understand where we come from, ultimately we're now the pride of North London.
Woolwich Arsenal were the team of the Royal Gunnery, playing their first games on this piece of land, Dial Square, in 1886. As the team grew into a club, they were to move away from the southeast and head north to Highbury.
Arsenal. Yeah man, best team. Every time Arsenal.
Arsenal had arrived on Spurs patch, and fans like Daniel Wynne have always been suspicious of the Gunners from Woolwich.
Tottenham were in North London, Arsenal were in Woolwich. It's well documented. They are a South London club, so arguably it's not even a North London derby.
Arsenal moving a half-mile to their new Emirates Stadium in 2006 has led to the beginning of another Spurs theory.
They are the travelling club. They are the gypsies, if you like. They can't settle anywhere. They were in South London, North London, and now they've gone from Highbury again. They've gone over to their new stadium. They're just not settled. So in 1913, we were in North London. We were established. That was our base. That was our home. And they came in on our doorstep. They wanted what we've got. They wanted what we've had, and that's a consistent message right the way throughout history.
They've always said that Tottenham are the only true North London club. Arsenal are a South London club that moved to North London. It's an angle they've always had. But it smells of desperation for me a little bit.
North London, South London, these two sets of fans are happiest when they're bickering with each other.
I think they try and find another angle to perhaps get their upper hand on Arsenal fans.
Herbert Chapman, one of their greatest managers arguably, he was an established player at Tottenham. Why have they got white sleeves on their shirts? Again, it's well documented. Herbert Chapman wanted to recreate the flair of Tottenham.
It smells, as I say, of desperation.
White represents Tottenham, white represents good, white represents purity. Tottenham play pure football, Arsenal don't.
But if all that sounds like North London squabbling, the Tottenham fans do perhaps have at least one genuine grudge. It all dates back to 1919, when Arsenal were in the second division.
They bought their way into the top league. They finished, I think, fifth in the old second division. Tottenham finished in the relegation places, and history and precedent showed that the team that finished in the top division would keep their place. But somehow, don't ask me how, brown paper bags again maybe, but brown paper bags were exchanged and somehow Arsenal bought their way into the top division.
It's very much part of history. As you can imagine, as Arsenal fans, when we read that story, it makes us laugh, it makes us smile, it makes us smirk, because it was at the expense of Tottenham.
So that was the point when a great rivalry kicked in. The Gunners dominated the earlier part of the century under the management of the great Herbert Chapman, with 5 title wins and 2 FA Cups in their triumphant 1930s period. But by the time the 60s came around, the power balance had shifted across North London. Tottenham under Bill Nicholson were the team to watch, whichever club you belong to.
I arrived at the Arsenal as a 17-year-old 5 million years ago. I've got to confess now that I spent a hell of a lot of time watching Tottenham, because in those days, if we had our players pass from the Arsenal or any other London club, we could go to an opposition ground and get in for free.
As a young boy, I wanted to go to Spurs because that was my team. I used to actually go to the games. I mean, I was at school at the time, but obviously with the clubs pursuing you to get you to sign, you used to get tickets and go to the game.
It was Spurs' heyday, when crowds flocked to see Bill Nicholson's double-winning side of 1961, led by Danny Blanchflower.
The double side, which had Dave Mackay and Cliff Jones and Blanchflower and so forth, I felt that was the best football I'd seen. It's so fast and beautiful, and used to go to games, and the atmosphere in that ground, I don't think I quite get it the same as with those European nights at Spurs. They were absolutely amazing.
These were the glory days at White Hart Lane, and the shockwaves were felt all over North London.
Of course we were envious, we were jealous. They played superb football. They were successful in Europe. Everything was going for it.
Tottenham had the best of everything. I mean, in those days, if any player was up for sale, the very, very best, it would be Tottenham would be the front runner. I think Everton was another club, and Arsenal, and Man United, but Tottenham were the big hitters when it came to the finances. I mean, they did buy some wonderful players, there's no doubt about it.
Spurs' success made for an electric atmosphere on derby days.
I would say in the 60s, it was no different really, because the only one thing in their mind is winning that game. And the streets were packed very early on. They wanted to savour the atmosphere, and basically you couldn't wait for that kickoff. And I would say the support had been thinking about it for weeks, maybe before the game that had played the previous week, because it's coming up. And that's all that's talked about, and that's all is to get that one over on your local rivalry.
But competitive as they were, opposing players like Terry Venables and George Graham were pretty good friends off the pitch.
We played at Highbury. It was my first marriage, and I got married in the morning. My best man was Terry Venables, who was playing for Tottenham in the afternoon. We got married in the morning. I left the reception, Terry and I. We both went to Highbury to play the game, and then went back to the reception in the evening again.
A Spurs double in 1961 was matched by Arsenal 10 years later, a 1971 Cup final victory against Liverpool. But before that, they clinched the league with a 1-0 win at White Hart Lane.
The Tottenham games were the special ones of all, and there was many, many great games. And obviously the game that we played when we had to win the championship was at White Hart Lane. There was, I don't know, 50,000 there, maybe more, but there was at least 40 to 50,000 locked out. And I've never seen so many people try to get in a match in all my career. It was just absolutely heaving 2 hours before the game. A fantastic match, a long, hard season. We needed to win it to win the championship, and we just managed to do that as well.
I come from a family of Arsenal supporters, and my dad and my uncle were at White Hart Lane in '71 when they ended up locking the gates an hour before kick-off, when essentially they'd let as many people in as they possibly could. When Ray Kennedy scored in the 85th minute, my dad always tells me the story of how he ended up on the pitch with the 25 or 30,000 or so Arsenal fans that squeezed in that night.
It changes from decade to decade. Early 60s, Tottenham were doing everything and playing wonderful football, delightful football, and having all the success. We were having a struggle. Then our time came, the Fairs Cup, then 71, the double, etc.
Beyond the change of fortunes, there was an even stranger turn of events for Terry Neill himself. It all started with a surprising phone call.
I still to this day don't know why the board of Tottenham Hotspur in the mid-70s asked me to take over the bill. Totally understandable that the Tottenham fans, we've got an ex-Arsenal captain replacing the great Bill Nicholson, and they were bottom of the league. Death threats, hate mail by the ton, abusive phone calls, people queuing in the car park before and after games to stick one on me, and that was their own fans. We stayed up in the very last game of the season. So, as I say, human nature being what it is, instant hero.
For an ex-Arsenal hero, though, it was never going to be a lengthy stay at White Hart Lane for Terry Neill.
It broke my heart to leave Tottenham, but it was just simply a question. I could not get on with the directors, and I just felt much too young to die.
There was only one direction for Terry to go, back down the Seven Sisters Road.
And then suddenly I got the call, would I like to have lunch with Dennis Hillwood, who'd been like a father to me at the Arsenal when I arrived as a 17-year-old. A couple of industrial-size gin and tonics out in the lawn, summertime, beautiful summer of 76. Welcome back. I was at long last, as I felt, certainly, at home.
It wasn't just Terry Neill, though, who made the journey from Spurs to Arsenal. Pat Jennings, Spurs' legendary goalkeeper, made the move too.
Probably the best bit of transfer business that I ever did was taking him across that divide from Tottenham to Arsenal. When I signed Pat and gave him a 4-year contract, there were nods and winks all over the place. Oh well, Terry and Pat have played the Northern Ireland team for years, the old Pals Act and everything like that. In truth, 8 years later, Pat Jennings was still in the Arsenal first team, still playing international football, and I was gone.
It was a mark of Jennings' quality and popularity that he managed to cross North London with friends in both camps.
We'll welcome them. Because if players move from Tottenham to Arsenal, we generally only take their very best players. I mean, Pat Jennings was a goalkeeping legend and revered by both teams.
Spurs fans are reasonable people. Pat Jennings did it, but he's been welcomed back with open arms, OK?
But it isn't always that amicable when a player crosses the city to join the rival. Sol Campbell's infamous move from Tottenham to Arsenal in July 2001 split North London once again. Campbell had been the jewel in Spurs' crown.
I think the headlines when Sol Campbell left was the ultimate act of betrayal. Not only did he lie to the Tottenham supporters by saying he wasn't going to go anywhere.
Up to the last day, many Tottenham fans were very confident that Sol was going to stay and extend his stay, and then he ends up taking 100 grand a week to move to their most bitter rivals, Arsenal. Now, that is the ultimate crime.
Speaking to a couple of Spurs fans I'm very good friends with, sadly deep down they understand that he had to leave Tottenham because he was a world-class centre-back and he had no place being at Tottenham, because a world-class centre-back deserves more than finishing 11th and going out in the first round of the Cup every year.
The fact he went to them, yeah, that's what really hurt us. The fact that he's always said he was a Tottenham fan through and through, and, you know, at the height of his career basically, to uproot and go over to that lot, that's what really hurt.
Back in the 1970s, though, Arsenal were fast establishing themselves as the dominant force in North London football. Terry Neill took his Arsenal side back to White Hart Lane in 1978. Liam Brady's famous strike and an Alan Sunderland hat-trick helped the Gunners to a 5-0 victory over their great rivals. In 1986, Arsenal made a crucial appointment. George Graham, who'd been so stylish as a player for the Gunners, became their most pragmatic manager.
At the beginning, late 80s, early 90s, we were playing good football again, and then George Graham, the side that he created that won the Cups in the mid-90s, again were classed as extremely negative, and every football fan said they didn't like watching Arsenal.
Arsenal did get a name for themselves as a boring team to watch, but their fans, players and manager never tired of the trophies they won.
All you heard from Tottenham fans during the George Graham years were, OK, you're winning, but you're boring. And we were winning. We were very, very boring. I don't think anyone can sort of take that away from George Graham's teams.
Over at White Hart Lane, it simply couldn't have happened. Ever since the glory days of the 60s, Spurs fans insisted on football with a certain panache.
They expected a certain brand of football, and that makes it harder, because you can say, well, I just want to win. I just want to win. We'll block the goal. We'll do this. We'll do that. We'll do that, and we'll get a goal. And I'm not saying that in the case of the Arsenal, to be fair. I think Arsenal had some terrific players who happened to be excellent defenders, and they didn't give many goals away, and they didn't make any bones about it. I know in the end it is all about winning, but there's also a responsibility of entertainment. It is an entertainment too.
Nevertheless, the sound of Arsenal's celebrations down the road was difficult for Spurs fans to accept.
All the way through, they've wanted to emulate what Tottenham have done. We were the first British club to win a European trophy. They've only won 2, we've won 3. We were the first club in the 20th century to win the double. Again, they wanted to emulate that. We were the first club to win the FA Cup back to back. They wanted to emulate that. We were the first club to win the League Cup twice. Again, they tried to emulate that. Whatever we've done, we've always set the pace, and they've tried to follow.
But for all Tottenham's proud record, Arsenal were now setting the pace in North London, and any new Spurs manager had a struggle to keep on terms.
I arrived at, I think it was November '87, and Arsenal have been doing great things. And of course they were way ahead, and we were going to be trying to catch them up, which wasn't going to be that easy.
But Venables did eclipse the North London rivals 4 years later when he led his side out at Wembley for an FA Cup semi-final against Arsenal. The prize, a place in the 1991 FA Cup final.
In '91, and Gary Lineker was in the team as well then, we had this fantastic performance in the semi-final. And they were really at the top, Arsenal, and we outplayed them, I think it's fair to say.
The highlight for us has to be the '91 semi-final, Paul Gascoigne and all that.
To be playing Arsenal at Wembley brought in a massive attendance, and it was a fantastic showpiece.
Tottenham went into the game clearly as underdogs. Arsenal were odds on to win the double. They virtually all but wrapped up the league that season, and you know, we were just up for it more than them. We wanted it more than they did, and you know, get Paul Gascoigne, great start.
He hit it like a rocket, as we all remember. I think it'd still be going today if there was no net there. He ran straight over to the bench and he just jumped on me and he just said, "The England goalie." He said he only tried to save it. And I always remember his mad eyes and him screaming that out.
I call it the semi-final that I went to. I didn't play, I went there.
Tottenham's other hero that day was Gary Lineker, who scored twice and made it an occasion to treasure for Spurs fans. The England international goal poacher made sure of a famous 3-1 victory over the old enemy. But while Spurs celebrated, the red and white half of North London were already trying to forget.
I was the only goon at my school, and 3 of my then best mates were Tottenham fans. So, well, the next morning I basically cried, feigned injury and illness, and begged my dad not to send me to school. Seeing as he was trying to do the same thing to get out of work, he sort of couldn't really stop me. So I had the day off. But it was horrible.
That was a magnificent game, and that team was really starting to blend. And I must say there was a lot of fantastic performances through the team. Gazza always gets the credit for it, and quite rightly. I mean, the boys would be very happy to say it was such a great team performance.
Tottenham beat us in the semi-final, the famous Gascoigne goal, and that was the biggest thing they had over us for a long time, and we got serious grief over that for a period. But fortunately, that only lasted 2 years, because 2 years later we played them in the semi-final again.
Yes, both sides were back at Wembley for a rematch. This time, though, no Paul Gascoigne for Tottenham Hotspur.
Well, it's back to Wembley again, same expectations. Unfortunately, it wasn't the same game. Tottenham couldn't get their game going, and 1-0 to the Arsenal, which obviously was a renowned chant under the George Graham era.
That was a wonderful moment. I mean, Tony Adams is Mr. Arsenal, epitomises everything that's great about Arsenal. And for Donkey to win the derby was sweet, and that was the T-shirt that everyone wore for about 4 years afterwards.
In fact, since the Gascoigne goal, there have been precious few moments for Spurs fans to celebrate within the rivalry. Their misery has much to do with one man, Arsene Wenger, who took over at Highbury in 1996. He introduced a more fluid style, and success soon followed.
It has been, in Arsenal's time, a fantastic period, a golden period, which may never be repeated.
Wenger's a revolutionary, he's a visionary. We've played the greatest football these shores have ever seen. Watching the Arsenal teams of 2003 and 2004 was something I'll never see again.
For that season, 2003-2004, Arsenal won the title without being beaten. And there was further humiliation for Tottenham fans. The Gunners were actually playing attractive football. Desperation for Tottenham as boring Arsenal was a thing of the past.
Tottenham, who used to sort of have at least claim to playing better football than the rivals, suddenly were even put into the shadow by the style of football that Arsenal were playing, which didn't go down too well.
I think what hurts us is the fact for a while they were doing it, playing the Tottenham way. You know, Thierry Henry, he's definitely up there as one of the great players. But if you look all around them, you know, they have still cheated the way through games. Arsene Wenger likes nothing more than to moan at officials. You know, there's a bit of gamesmanship that comes in to their game. If you look at Tony Adams, his favourite position was appealing for offside. He was the first one to have a go at referees. That's not the way to play the game. If you're going to play it the Tottenham way, you have to play it properly. It's all well and good playing with the flair and the panache, but you've got to do it all the way through, and that's certainly something that Bill Nicholson installed in the Tottenham players of that generation. Arsenal have failed miserably in that.
There was no escaping the fact, though, that this Arsenal side were one of the greatest ever seen in England. And at the end of their unbeaten season, they forced the message home by once again clinching the championship at White Hart Lane.
What could be worse than seeing your bitter rivals celebrating winning the league championship on your own pitch?
You can say or talk as long as you want, but we did that. We won the league at their ground, and I don't know if they can actually have a shout or will have a shout in their life to win the title at our ground. So for me, that will stay in my mind for a very long time.
Despite the fact that Tottenham thought that they took something away by equalising in the 90th minute with Robbie Keane's penalty, it was absolutely wonderful. Seeing their fans go absolutely crazy, because snatching a draw against Arsenal in the last minute for them is as good as winning the European Cup. The fact was, we won the league at their place, and you know they can have their 2 seconds of glory, but we had gloating rights for the next year.
It's been a period of transition at Arsenal. They'd moved to their new 60,000-seater Emirates Stadium, while allowing some very promising youngsters their chance in the Arsenal jersey. Under Dutchman Martin Jol, Tottenham had shown marked improvement, almost knocking Arsenal out of the Champions League places in 2006. Ultimately, they failed, and as ever for Spurs, it's Arsenal's shadow that looms largest.
You have to say they've had a fantastic period of really of domination. When Arsene Wenger came, he changed around the club, he took them to a new level, and they achieved fantastic things. I think you know, not only ourselves but many Premiership clubs have tried to emulate them over the last few years, but I feel that the gap that there was there is closing rapidly, and I think we've made great progress, and I think that Arsenal know that as well. So history rolled on at Arsenal, a new stadium, a new squad emerging.
But the decision of one player to leave the club in 2007 seemed a moment of particular significance.
I would like to thank everybody that I worked with, that I played with, especially the boss and Mr. Dean and all those Arsenal fans. It was unreal at times. And I will always love the club. It was and will remain as the most difficult decision in my life.
Along with the departure of an Arsenal icon, it had been a turbulent time in the corridors of Arsenal power, with directors leaving and rumours of multi-million-pound takeovers.
The overall feeling for me is one of great sadness, great fear, because it used to be such a unified club. And I'd always said, over many, many years, that the strength of Arsenal Football Club was in the boardroom. Now that seems to have been rocked a little, so some interesting times ahead, but I do fear that it may be the end of an era as far as the Arsenal Football Club are concerned.
Over at White Hart Lane, the 2007-2008 season brought problems on the pitch, while their closest rivals again excelled. Martin Jol was replaced at the helm by the Spaniard Juan de Ramos, who was immediately confronted by the weight of history at Tottenham.
It's obviously very special to be at such a big club with such a past history, but I don't think you can live on past histories. I think you've got to live in the now. This club has been a great club and will be for many years, regardless of whether we're here playing or not. I think we've got to achieve things for ourselves. We have to create history for ourselves rather than looking back and thinking, oh, you know, this is a big club, we can't rest on our laurels. We've got to keep it a big club. You know, there's too many people look back in the past and say, you know, this has happened, this has happened. We've got to create history now.